And another wide receiver completely locked in, but it's Nico Collins. Nico Collins is fully back. This is a player where we missed him for a large portion of the year, but now we're starting to see that consistent wide receiver one production that we're used to seeing with one of the biggest alpha wide receivers in football. He had 8 catches for 119 yards on 11 targets this week. So doesn't catch a touchdown, but he had 8 catches for 119 yards. Absolute beast. And over the last 2 weeks, he's had 19 and 20 points in back-to-back games. This is also a player that over the last 3 games since he's returned, he's had 2 touchdowns overturned. So this production could be even more. And today, Nico Collins had a 33% target share. Absolute stud.
What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
The top 12 fantasy football reactions from week 13. I'm Theo Gremminger with Fantasy Points. We're bringing you all the key insights and takeaways that you need to know from week 13. 1 week left until the fantasy football playoffs. Most of you have fantasy football playoffs starting in week 15. So we need to get it right heading into week 14 in a must-win game. Here's some of the biggest takeaways from this long week. You had multiple games on Thursday. You had a Black Friday game. You had craziness going down. Matt Eberflus getting fired on Black Friday. But here are the things that you need to know as a fantasy football manager moving forward that can help you get that edge to win your fantasy football championship. And let's start out right at the top. Let's start out with Chase Brown. This has been a player that if you've been following Fantasy Points all season long, you've been watching the School of Scott podcast with Scott Barrett and I, Chase Brown has been a player that we've been pounding the table for, saying this guy is about to get loose and start scoring a lot of fantasy points. Zach Moss heads to the IR, and it's been nothing but Chase Brown ever since. Now, Cincinnati's coming off of their bye week, so the usage to stay in this way was great. He had 12 of the Bengals' 15 rush attempts, and he caught all 3 of his targets, giving you 3 catches for 30 yards, and he scored a touchdown on the ground. So by Chase Brown standards, this was somewhat of a quiet week, but he gets the touchdown. He continues to dominate usage, and he does it coming out of a bye week. He is a top 6 or 7 running back for the rest of the season, and multiple teams are going to be on bye week this next week. Chase Brown is going to be sitting there and playing. And over his last 4 weeks played, he's had 26, 22, 19, and 19 PPR points. Just an awesome game for Chase Brown. But it's not all positives this week. Got to talk about Kirk Cousins because the writing's on the wall where we might see Michael Penix sooner than later. Michael Penix, how long can they keep Michael Penix on the bench in Atlanta? Michael Penix was the 8th overall pick in this year's draft. And you're talking about a draft where he was drafted ahead of Bo Nix. He was drafted ahead of J.J. McCarthy. Organizationally, they believed that Michael Penix was a player that they would have selected ahead of Drake May. So Atlanta has gone out on the record saying how excited they are for Penix, yet they're not giving him an opportunity. A lot of it's the contract that Kirk Cousins signed. It's sort of backtracking on this massive amount of money you've put in. But how long can Atlanta stick with Kirk Cousins? He had 4 picks today. And if you watch the game, it could have been much worse. There were some balls that were floated, some balls that were near interceptions. This could have been like a 6-pick disaster, but it was still awful. 4 picks. And this is coming out of a bye week. So Atlanta to have this sort of futility at the quarterback position was very disappointing. Cousins has 13 interceptions on the season, and he has 6 over his last 3 games played. And if you take away the 2 Tampa Bay games where Cousins had 8 touchdown passes in the 2 games combined, then he's been just truly awful this season. How long can they keep Michael Penix on the bench? I think this is going to be a massive talking point at the beginning of this week. And if you're in a deeper format, go ahead and pick up some Michael Penix. He might be in the lineup as soon as this week. It was that bad. And one quarterback who continues to cook is Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels' season is here. Just like we saw at the beginning of the season, you're starting to see it in the tail end of the season. Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders got a much needed win over the Tennessee Titans this week. And Daniels was just awesome. 4 touchdowns today, including 2 touchdown passes to Terry McLaurin, who's having his best season as a pro because of Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels is currently the QB1 overall heading into Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football. I'm recording this before Sunday Night Football. So right now, Jayden Daniels is the QB1 overall, just like he was last week. And you're talking about back-to-back top 5 finishes for the first time this season for Daniels since the first month of the season. So we're seeing Daniels really deliver with a awesome fantasy season. He's going to end up being a top 6 quarterback at the top 6 scorer at the quarterback position when it's all said and done. And he's got rushing touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. So he's giving you production as a passer and production as a runner. He's an absolute stud. And like we talked about last week, the fantasy playoff schedule for Daniels is awesome. He gets the Atlanta Falcons in week 17 in Washington, a game where Daniels might just go off and win fantasy managers' fantasy titles. Another player that we got to talk about, this is a negative one, CeeDee Lamb. Dallas won on Thanksgiving Day. They improved to 5-7, so that was a much-needed win for them. But CeeDee Lamb left the game early, and it's a shoulder injury, and his status is going to be up in the air. This has been a player that's been playing through pain this season, more so than we're used to seeing with Lamb. But you have to think, if Dallas gets eliminated from the playoff contention, then you're talking about why would you risk it if you're CeeDee Lamb? So CeeDee Lamb managers might not have him in the fantasy football playoffs. This is one to keep an eye on, but shoulder injuries are very tricky for players. They are oftentimes a pain tolerance thing, and there's oftentimes chances that they can get re-aggravated off of a hit. So let's keep an eye on CeeDee Lamb's injury. Another ridiculous game from Trey McBride. Trey McBride continues to go absolutely nuts. He had the 40% target share last week. This week, a 26.7% target share. Over the last 2 weeks, he has 24 catches for 229 yards and a 35% overall target share between the 2 games. This is a player averaging 23.4 points per game since Arizona has returned from bye. It's unbelievable what Trey McBride is doing. He is one of the biggest difference makers you can have at the tight end position. And what's even crazier is he continues to do this with no touchdown catches. Right now, Trey McBride has the 8th most catches all time without a touchdown catch. He has 73 catches this season without a touchdown catch. This has got to turn around. But even without the touchdown catches, Trey McBride is absolutely a target monster and a big difference maker for fantasy managers heading into the fantasy football playoffs. And another tight end, we got to keep talking about these tight ends because Brock Bowers, if you watch that Black Friday game, he was just awesome against the Kansas City Chiefs. And this was another near loss for the Kansas City Chiefs where they somehow survive. The Las Vegas Raiders were the first team to be eliminated from the NFL playoffs with their loss. That was expected. But one huge positive for Vegas has been the play from Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers looks like the odds-on favorite to finish as the tight end 1 overall in redraft. And if you are a dynasty manager with Brock Bowers, congratulations on all of the money you're going to make over the next few years. He is going to feed families with his production. Bowers is absolutely the real deal. This past offseason, I said he was like Jordy Nelson, but bigger and has a little Shannon Sharp mixed into him. I was maybe way too underwhelming with that comparison because Bowers is doing things that we've never seen from a 21-year-old. This is a player, again, on Black Friday, 10 catches on 14 targets, and he catches a touchdown. He is now only 2 catches away from breaking Sam Laporta's rookie record all time at the tight end position. He'll break it next week. But now we're starting to talk about history. He's 21 catches away from tying Puka Nakua's all-time record for rookie receptions. So you're talking about a young tight end who's about to have more receptions than any rookie wide receiver ever has. You start talking about those special years from guys like Justin Jefferson, guys like Jamar Chase, guys like Puka Nacua, Jalen Waddle's rookie season, and none of them will end up having more receptions than Brock Bowers is set to have if he continues this pace. And even if his pace trails slightly, he's still going to catch these records. Now we start talking about the all-time tight end record. He's 32 catches away from the all-time record for receptions by a tight end in a season. Unbelievable what Brock Bowers is doing. I think he might be headed to the first round in redraft leagues in 2025. It's rare you see a regular PPR league where this young a tight end gets into the first round, but I think we could see it this season because Brock Bowers has the absurd target share and the absurd catch totals, and next year we should see some sort of improvement in terms of quarterback consistency. Get ready for first round Brock Bowers in 2025. Talk about Bijan Robinson. It's not all negatives with Atlanta. We talked about Kirk Cousins. That's one where we're nervous about Kirk Cousins, but we're not nervous about the running back he's handing the ball to. Bijan had one of his worst games of the season heading into the bye week. Denver annihilated Atlanta, and Bijan scored about 10 PPR points. This was a one-off from a player who's just been on fire fantasy-wise, and it was awesome to see him return to this sort of usage. 26 carries for 102 rushing yards and a touchdown, and he has 6 catches on 6 targets. Gets you 33 receiving yards. So Bijan gives you that well-rounded game, continues to thrive, and what he's done recently is outstanding fantasy football production from the running back spot. Bell cow usage, bell cow production. This is a player who's had at least 21 points scored in 6 out of his last 7 games played. Bijan Robinson is set to absolutely crush it for the rest of the season. No matter what the quarterback mistakes are in Atlanta, they can always lean on Bijan Robinson. He's playing outstanding football right now. And we'll talk about the running back position again. So Achane was a player that had 2 touchdowns last week. This was a player that the production was nothing to be concerned about, but there were some slight red flags usage-wise when we talk about that game against New England. He had only a 10% target share, and his snap share was in the 50s. It was below 55%. So this was a slightly reduced snap share and a reduced target share in the same game, but you might not have even noticed it because he scored 20 PPR points, and he gave you the 2 touchdown catches. So against Green Bay, it was good to see that even in a game where Achane struggled running the football, he still got you 21 PPR points, but it was the metrics that we love to see. Achane returned to a 19.5% target share, and he also played over 65% of the snaps, 67% snap share this week. So Achane is locked in. The production is great. He leads all running backs with 6 touchdown grabs this season. And in terms of scoring numbers, he's now scored 20 or more PPR points in 3 straight weeks. Absolutely locked in. Achane, along with Bijan Robinson, will be selected in the first round in 2025 redraft leagues. Achane is just cooking this season, and it's amazing to see the production he's having as a receiver. And let's go right back to talking about another running back we discussed last week, and that's Bucky Irving. And how can we not discuss Bucky Irving? Last week, he scored 27 points. This week, he does even better, scores 27.5 points. And he gets you a career-high 152 rushing yards and a touchdown. We knew the matchup was going to be very good against Carolina. This was the one where Carolina was a matchup that we knew that the running backs could thrive against. But in a good matchup, Bucky absolutely crushed. 152 rushing yards. This is a player that is completely locked in. He has scored 15 points or more in 6 out of his last 7 games. This is just tremendous production for a rookie. So what Bucky Irving is doing is just ridiculous. We've also seen 9 receptions in 2 games post-bye week, and he's dominating the running back usage in Tampa Bay right now. This is a situation where the gap is actually growing between Bucky and every other back. Rachaad White actually played pretty well today. Rachaad White had 11 rushes for 76 yards, but White has been completely eliminated as a receiver out of the backfield in favor of the rookie Bucky Irving. So Irving this week, 3 targets, Rachaad White gets only 1. And carries-wise, Bucky Irving had 25 carries this week. Rachaad White had 11. It's over for Rachaad White. It's the Bucky Irving era in Tampa Bay, and he's going to be a second-round pick next year in 2025. I think this is going to be a player that continues to gain value all the rest of the season, heading into the offseason, and he'll be a I can't leave my draft without guy next year in redraft leagues. Bucky Irving is awesome. And another rookie that's just awesome, it was really good today, was Ladd McConkey. 50% target share, had 12 targets today. This was amazing. And it was really all first half driven. This could have been a much larger game for McConkey, but he was knocked out of the game. He had a knee injury, which right now we don't think is anything major, but it needs to be monitored. Stick with us here at Fantasy Points all week long. We're going to get you all that injury information. But Ladd McConkey, knee injury, maybe he misses the Kansas City game, but I'll take an optimistic approach and say this is nothing that's going to keep him out too long. At least I hope. He had the highest target share for a rookie this season since Malik Neighbors in week 2. And Neighbors had that 64% target share game that was just ridiculous. But McConkey is, in the same light, a massive target earner. He had 105 receiving yards in the first half. This was a Chargers franchise record for rookies. Unbelievable what he was able to do. This is a player that has wide receiver 1 upside for the rest of the season. LA's really committed to targeting him, getting him the ball, and we started to see it with some consistent production. He's had 3 straight games with 14.3 points or more in PPR leagues. Ladd McConkey is just a very, very good player. He is a player that has exceptional separation skills, and he's locked in with Justin Herbert. This is by far the number 1 target on LA, and as long as he's healthy, expect LA to use him more and more down the stretch. And another wide receiver completely locked in, but it's Nico Collins. Nico Collins is fully back. This is a player where we missed him for a large portion of the year, but now we're starting to see that consistent wide receiver 1 production that we're used to seeing with one of the biggest alpha wide receivers in football. He had 8 catches for 119 yards on 11 targets this week. So doesn't catch a touchdown, but he had 8 catches for 119 yards. Absolute beast. And over the last 2 weeks, he's had 19 and 20 points in back-to-back games. This is also a player that over the last 3 games since he's returned, he's had 2 touchdowns overturned. So this production could be even more. And today, Nico Collins had a 33% target share. Absolute stud. And how could we not talk about Saquon Barkley? The final takeaway today is Saquon Barkley. And I think every single week that I record these videos, I've got to mention Saquon Barkley. This is a player that is putting together one of the best seasons we've ever seen all time. Today, he had that huge game where it was like a showdown between Barkley and Derrick Henry. Barkley ends up outscoring Derrick Henry 19.7 to 14.1, but Barkley had another 100-yard rushing game, scored a rushing touchdown, and that touchdown was huge. It ended up being the score that kind of put it out of reach for Baltimore. And Saquon right now, we know he's chasing history, but history is going to start to come every single week. Saquon needs 108 rushing yards, and he breaks Shady McCoy's record for Philadelphia Eagles. So, like, breaking Shady McCoy's record, anybody who's played fantasy football for a long time understands what a great player Shady McCoy was. In 2013, Shady McCoy, LaShawn McCoy, had 1,607 rushing yards in 16 games played. Right now, Saquon Barkley has 1,499 in only 12 games played. It's absolutely ridiculous, this pace. Once he breaks the Eagles records, then we're going to start talking more and more about chasing Eric Dickerson, chasing some of these all-time rushing records, but he's just awesome. I'm Theo Gremminger. Stick with us here at Fantasy Points all week long. We're going to drop videos like this. We're going to help you crush your leagues, and make sure you're checking out everything over at FantasyPoints.com. Everything's on sale right now, and you can use the code SCHOOL 25 to get 25% off anything on the site. Plus, check out the sales that are going on. Just some awesome deals. Makes great presents around the holiday season. We'll see you soon.